What kind of life do we owe the animals we eat?
I've seen these horrific conditions firsthand, and I've reported them to law enforcement repeatedly, but nothing has been done.
Lies, 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 and more lies.
Some Bay Area voters will soon decide on new rules for factory farms.
It's an activist group of vegans who want us to have a vegan diet.
Today, we're talking about what goes on behind the fence line.
I see so many animals that are abused for no reason other than people like the way it tastes.
And if a ballot measure could affect what you pay for groceries.
Everybody's going to feel it.
This is CBS News Bay Area with Elizabeth Cook.
I'm Ann Makovic in for Liz. Many of us don't think a lot about what the animals that end up on our dinner plate went through in their short lives. Well, a measure on the ballot in the North Bay is part of a national conversation on factory farms. But farmers say they already follow California's rules on cage size. And frankly, concerns about cruelty and pollution can be overshadowed when inflation is already squeezing Bay Area families to the brink. We are 28 days away from the election, and voters in the North Bay are going to weigh in on a ballot measure that could change the landscape of farming in Sonoma County. Measure J would phase out large-scale farms where sometimes tens of thousands of animals are kept in a confined setting. Supporters say that leads to cruel conditions, pollution, and unfair competition for small family farms.
They are living crowded together, not in cages anymore, thanks to California voters, but still in basically a cage of flesh.
At the end of the day, all the food will then just come from the Midwest and other surrounding areas instead of at least being local food.
Well, North Bay farms have had a lot of trouble so far this year with the bird flu because of their location along the path of migratory birds. Farmed birds have been infected in at least 2 large-scale operations in Sonoma County, leading to entire flocks having to be killed en masse to try to prevent the spread. Supporters of Measure J say ending factory farms will help mitigate that risk. Now, Californians have already approved rules governing how animals raised for food should be treated. Prop 12 was passed overwhelmingly back in 2018. That allows pigs, calves, and egg-laying hens at least enough room to stand up and turn around in their cages, and for hens to be able to spread their wings. Prop 12 has survived a challenge from pork producers in the U.S. Supreme Court, but the opposition continues. There is a measure in the current farm bill that could knock back a lot of those protections if Congress passes it as is. Well, data suggests that after Prop 12 passed, the price of covered pork products grew by 20%. That is according to the UC Agriculture and Natural Resources Department. That price bump is attributed to uncertainty regarding Prop 12 and some one-time costs of farms adjusting to the change. But farmers are concerned about the squeeze.
You're going to see price inflation. Everybody's going to feel it, and we've had enough with price inflation. It also takes away thousands of jobs in this county.
We asked a UC Davis professor if Measure J would lead to a price hike. He said it's unlikely, since large farms could still operate in other counties and they could step in to help with supply. But he did warn against a statewide ban.
As people think about, gee, we ought to do this everywhere, then the biggest consequences are food prices.
The groups behind the measure said they would like to see this as the start of ending factory farming for good. And we're going to speak with one of them coming up in a live interview right after the break, why they say the new rules are needed if current rules are being ignored, and about the allegations that they're extremists pushing everyone to go vegan. Plus, we're going to hear from local dairy farmers, family farmers, who fear they could lose their livelihood, why they say the measure is misunderstood. Welcome back to our conversation about factory farms and the potential impact of Measure J in Sonoma County. Local agriculture officials say if it passes, it could lead to the closures of about 20 farms. One of them is Tresh Family Farm, and our Brian Hackney paid them a visit.
We're in the Petaluma Dairy Belt, where the winds and the fog can come in and keep the grass a little more moist. It's a great place to have dairy farms, and that's why we have a concentration of them down this way.
There are about 3,000 farms in Sonoma County. But a new measure on the November ballot is targeting 24 of the biggest. Christina Garfinkel is with the Coalition to End Factory Farming.
Measure J is a local ballot initiative that aims to stop concentrated animal feeding operations in Sonoma County.
Measure J would outlaw larger animal farms and those defined as polluting the water in Sonoma County. Such farms are called CAFOs, concentrated animal feeding operations, euphemistically factory farms.
Everything is wrong with Measure J. It is a disaster for Sonoma County.
David Rabbit is the chair of the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors and is opposed on every level, including the hit to the economy.
$500 million impact to the county's economy.
You would dispute that?
I would.
John Haveman is a consulting economist supporting the measure.
I mean, so the economic impact analysis says, suppose we remove virtually all animal farming from Sonoma County, which is a very different thing.
And just ask what a large farm, a CAFO, is.
CAFOs are major polluters. They pollute groundwater, surface water, and they're cruel to animals.
Lies, 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 and more lies.
Kathy Tresh has worked on her big family farm most of her life. And her daughter?
I'm 33 years old. The property has been in my family since 1905. I'm the 5th generation, and my children are the 6th.
Of course, both reject the notion that all big farms are necessarily big polluters.
We were the Environmentalists of the Year in Sonoma County one year. We've had Stewards of the Land Award.
She's also offended by the suggestion her family mistreats their 750 cows.
It's completely false. For one thing, being certified organic, the National Organic Program has stringent requirements of how our animals are to be treated.
But at another farm, not the Tresh family's, organizers allege they took pictures of distressing conditions.
I've seen these horrific conditions firsthand, and I've reported them to law enforcement repeatedly, but nothing has been done.
You trespassed to take these pictures?
Well, I believe that trespass is a very specific definition. I have entered without specific permission from the owner. Yeah.
When he did, activist Louis Bernier said that he took these undercover pictures of crowded, deformed, and dead birds in this Sonoma facility.
They're estimated to confine over 230,000 chickens inside these industrial sheds.
But bear in mind, the County Farm Bureau said isolated incidents of mortality occur on any farm despite the best animal care practices. And it is grossly misleading to portray these photos as representative of conditions at family farms. And as for family farms?
We milk around 700 cows on 2 separate dairies because we're a multi-generational farm. And we're on over 2,500 acres. So we're not a factory farm.
But both sides agree on one thing.
I think if this passes, our farm would be gone.
Yeah, it would. We would be shut down.
As for how many big farms would be shut down,
it's hard to say, but one farm is too many.
But to activists, one picture like this may be too many. One thing is certain. If Sonoma votes to shut down its large farms, it'll be the first time that's ever happened in the entire country.
A number of surrounding cities have passed resolutions opposing Sonoma County's Measure J. That includes Sebastopol, Cloverdale, Roanoke Park, Santa Rosa, and Sonoma. Well, joining me live now is Cassie King with the Coalition to End Factory Farming, one of more than a dozen animal rights groups pushing for this measure. Cassie, thanks so much for being here. First question is, why here, why now?
Thank you so much for having me, Anne. And that's a wonderful question. People might know that Sonoma County is an agricultural county and a very progressive county where people have shown that they care about animals, they care about the environment. Sonoma County voted overwhelmingly in support of Propositions 2 and Propositions 12, the statewide ballot measures that gave certain kinds of animals and farms a bit more space. They got a square foot of space for egg-laying hens. So this is a place where people care about these issues and are willing to make changes, and we hope that this can spread to other parts of the country. It's also a place where there is the support to make this happen.
Okay, and then you're saying this could be a starting point. You hear so many times, as goes California, as goes the nation. But this, to a lot of people, feels very extreme. What do you say about that?
Well, Measure J is a very moderate measure that prohibits concentrated animal feeding operations as defined by the Environmental Protection Agency. These are the largest animal farms and the most polluting. So, by prohibiting CAFOs, as they're called, we're essentially setting a limit on how many animals can be confined in a single facility.
So there are already rules against animal cruelty, and California does have some of the more stringent rules across the country. So we're looking at state laws, federal laws. Why do you think those aren't working? In some cases, perhaps because of the sheer size of some of these farms?
Well, as I already said, some of these laws that people are quoting on the opposition saying things are good enough are really only giving some kinds of animals the bare minimum square footage, 1 square foot, to be able to stretch their wings or limbs. There's so much farther to go. That was an incremental step, but there's so much farther to go. And as far as reporting violations of laws like Proposition 2 or California's animal cruelty laws, when you report these findings, when you share video evidence with the authorities, they refuse to take action. And that actually speaks to the power that these bigger companies, these corporations in many cases, have. You know, the bigger that you are and the more power that you have, the more that you can get away with. And we see that not just in animal agriculture, but in many facets of our society and politics.
I think it's difficult for a lot of people when you see, two different, very different pictures. Some of crippled and dying animals on a floor, and then others of, bucolic pictures of farmland and a cow grazing in a beautiful pasture. People don't know what to believe, what's going on behind the fence line.
Well, I think it's important to note that of the approximately 3 million animals who are currently confined in CAFOs in Sonoma County, about 99.8% of them are chickens and ducks. So there's about 6,000 cows who are in the 6 dairy CAFOs that we estimate are operating in Sonoma County right now. And of course, the opposition has made one of those facilities their poster child because that farm is barely over the limit and reasonably could downsize to under 700 mature milking cows, which is what we're talking about with Measure J. It's setting a limit that the largest facilities would need to downsize under. No facility necessarily even has to shut down. And it also prevents any new factory farms from ever moving into the county. So this is going to protect the environment, protect the hundreds of small farms that are already operating in Sonoma County, and of course, protect animals from factory farm environments, which everyone here watching probably can say they wouldn't want to live in.
And I know we touched on this very briefly and we don't have a lot of time left, but a lot of the opponents of Measure J trying to paint you and other supporters as basically radical vegans trying to change society and trying to get no one to eat any meat, any dairy, any eggs. What is your response to that?
That's not at all what Measure J is about, and I think it's insulting to the almost 40,000 Sonoma County voters who signed to get this petition on the ballot and to all of those who will be voting yes. So I hope people will consider the strong support that there is in Sonoma County for protecting animals, protecting our environment, and making progress that can make us a good example to the rest of the country.
All right, Cassie King, thanks for your perspective. We're going to be right back.